Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. It's me, Mayan Shoshani. You may know me from such roles as being a lab officer, where I do whatever I want.
I'm so happy to have you here today to talk with you, Mayan. It's very exciting. Definitely the highlight of my week.
I'm always happy to help.
So first of all, do you have any hobbies or other interests besides game dev?
Well, I mean, like most people in the club, I like playing video games. I love reading comics, anime, I love playing D&D. Scuba diving is cool. I haven't gone skydiving, but it sounds great in theory.
So what department are you in besides admin? Like when you're on a game team, what do you normally do?
Normally when I'm on a game team, I'm either just programming or I'm multitasking programming with some production.
What do you like about those departments?
Programming in VGDC kind of fulfills everything I love about programming. It's the combination of, getting to do logical and math-related problems that comes with most programming, but also then there's like the entire creative side of it that is inherent to like a lot of programming, but you really get to like really explore a lot of what you can do creatively in programming in video games. So I really love that. And production I kind of got into just because sometimes programmers need to be shouted at to actually get work done. And half of the time in my groups when I'm working with people, not even just in this club, I'm just good at shouting people to do things.
Good skill to have. How did you get into game development?
Game development or VGDC specifically?
Game development, as a whole.
As a whole?
Mm-hmm.
I guess like a lot of other people and stuff, I always, knew and was interested in game development ever since I was a kid. Just because, we grew up in that time where there was all the game journals and all that, and there were people actually reporting on, like, the people who actually make the games. So there's, like, a face to a lot of the games that I had played growing up. And so it always seemed like an interesting thing to do. And then I got to school and I became a CS major, and I'm like, okay, if I'm already here and I'm already doing programming, might as well do that thing I always thought about doing as a kid and try to give it a shot, go into video game development.
So how did you end up joining VGDC, and also from there, how did you become an officer?
Let's see, VGDC. So I joined VGDC in my second year of college here at UCI. I did my game my freshman year. It didn't turn out great. And then, I took a quarter off because PADIS, and that happens. It's fine. It's fine. And then I came back for my third quarter in the second year, where that's where I got into with a real team that really got me into VGDC. That was working on Franklin with a great group of people. And after that project, I decided, I'm gonna stick around with these people, just because I've been with other clubs at the school. I've been with other CS clubs, and none of them are quite like VGDC and quite have the social or professional vibe to it. Becoming an officer. That's a story. So typically, the order it goes is you become an officer and then they give you a lab code. In my case, it's more, so a couple of years back, people were just awful at keeping their lab codes. Either people would just tell me them and then forgot that they told me them, you person who forgets everything, and then forgot that he gave me a lab code at one point. And then there was one person who just read out their lab code out loud in front of me on their phone, and basically showed me it on their phone, and then was surprised that I remembered it. And basically, for a long series of events, I ended up with lab codes before I was an officer. And then third year, beginning of it, Jordan was just like, "Hey Mayan, you're a lab officer." I'm like, "Okay, I already have a code." He's like, "Oh, I did not know that, but cool." And I'm like, "Okay." And then I proceeded to just do whatever I wanted in that position.
How did you first end up going into the game lab for the first time? Because that can be kind of scary for some people.
Yeah, that's understandable. I didn't actually go to the game lab until spring quarter of my second year, my first year in VGDC, because I was working on this game Franklin, and I was with Claudia and Ryan, and early on we decided, for our first meeting we tried to meet somewhere that wasn't the lab, and that didn't work out. So then we went to the lab, and we just kept going there, basically 3 times a week, including the weekends, to work on the project. And so we were just in the lab working all the time. And so I kind of got to know people in the lab, and I guess people started recognizing my face more often just because we were in there so much.
Why should people join VGDC? So like what positive experience do you gain from this club and stuff like that?
Okay, so there's the obvious stuff. You get to add projects to your resume. You get to work with other people on programming. But to me personally, the big thing that differentiates VGDC from all the other clubs is, well, okay. So to give backstory, in a lot of the other clubs at UCI, they'll have people meet, and they'll have a bunch of people there. But really, a lot of the other clubs are more in the service of a small group of people that those clubs will tend to send off to competitions. I'm not going to name names on that. Or those clubs tend to cater to a very small amount of people, and the other people who show up are just, either there to do what they can do, or be there to pad the numbers for when the school asks, hey, how many people do you have, and how much money can we give you because of that? And in VGDC, I really do feel that, the club is about the members, and about making sure, hey, they can make the kind of games they want. Like, we go through an entire vetting process of deciding, what kind of pitches we want to pitch, or allow people to do. But, once it happens, it's up to people to make their games, and we let them make it the way they want, for the most part. And so I feel like VGDC really gives you a lot of freedom to learn to work in teams, and to program, and design, and art, and all that, in a way that really works for you. Like, we have Art Strike, and if you're an artist, you should definitely do Art Strike. But I know people who didn't do Art Strike, and they're also doing very well, maybe just because that's not what it was for them. And I know people who do programming a bit different from everyone else. Like, a couple years ago, no one was working in Godot, and then a couple people showed up, and now everyone is talking about Godot all the time, it seems like this year. And so it's always interesting that, we're not a club that's stuck trying to do things one way that we've decided is the right way to do it. I like that the club is very open to changing to meet the needs and try to accommodate our members.
What are some of your favorite memories from the club? Just
Fun stories I have. I have a lot of fun stories. I really enjoyed my time here. I have fond memories of the time we had just a sleepover in the lab. It was 2 or 3 years ago, I think. I don't remember. 2 years ago. It was just, we bought a blanket and pillows, and we put that down on the lab floor because the lab floor is gross. And it was even grosser back then because I don't think anyone had ever cleaned it. And so we were just sitting on the floor, and I think playing card games and watching Twin Peaks on the TV. It was an interesting night. Yeah, I've spent a lot of late night in the lab doing dumb stuff. Other fond memories. I've always enjoyed game jams, and I always loved, just hanging out with people on the downtime in the lab, or outside of it. Just the membership at VGDC is really great. If you want to meet people who enjoy video games, but also, aren't the worst aspects of game culture, I feel VGDC is the best place to do that. Just because we do love video games here, but also we're, about the productive side of it. We want to try and make things better, not worse.
Do you have any advice for someone doing their first game jam?
Ooh, first game jam. Accept early on that it's probably not going to go the way you envisioned. Chances are it won't even go great. But try to learn, try to learn from the experience, no matter how it goes, and don't be one of those people who gets way too overly stressed about it. It's just one small game you're making in 2 days. It was never going to be like the greatest thing ever. It doesn't have to be complete. As long as you can say you took away one thing from the experience, and this goes for like even normal game projects, not even just game jams, then you've accomplished something, and that's something to be proud of. I think so anyway.
Would you like to talk about some of the games that you created?
Sure. The games that I made that are notable, that I feel comfortable talking about. I'm sure at some point you'll probably ask me about Franklin at some point. So Franklin is a thing that we'll talk about later when we talk about games that were dumb things that happened. Because I enjoyed working on that game. It was a net worth card game, but some stuff happened also. A game I have really fond memories working on was just Abyss, which was this mobile platformer with it was trying to use the gyroscope of the phone to do some puzzly stuff with it. It never actually got completed 100%. We finished all the mechanics and everything. The quarter ended and it's like, okay, next quarter we'll just put all the levels and stuff together and then we'll have a done game. And we never got around to it. And my hope is now that I'm finishing up school, I'll have the free time to actually just finish that and be able to say, okay, this passion project is done now. Because I really enjoyed that game and I really like the concepts of it. Another game this wasn't so much a VGDC game, it was a game I made for a class. This was for CS 117, the video game development class that CGS kids can't take. Yeah, they don't get credit for it, it's weird. So me as a CS student, I was able to take it and had a great time. I took that class as a project course with basically all of the other officers in VGDC at the time who weren't CGS. Basically all of the other CS or informatics ones. We were on a team together, and it was just a really great time getting to work with all these guys who I'm friends with, but I've never really gotten the opportunity to work with before. That was a real fun time. We just got to go test Godot and got to go ham on it, and it's a great tool, especially when you're trying to do something fast.
Would you like to talk about Franklin? I haven't heard that story, so I didn't know about this.
Oh, I was assuming you'd at some point ask me, hey, what's the dumbest story you have about working on a game?
Oh.
And at which point, I would explain Franklin to you.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, so Franklin was, a great experience. It's what got me into VGDC, and it's what really decided to, get me into the social scene of VGDC and got me to stick around. That game was also, an experience, and everything can go wrong. From design and scope creep to bad leadership to just people not communicating as great as they could be, and just everyone having some sort of breakdown at one point or another, I think. It wasn't a great time all the time, but I loved the team for the most part. Okay, I love 2 people on the team. There are the 2 people I kept hanging out with afterwards.
What was the game?
I think I said earlier, it was like a networked card game, Hearthstone-like, but better because our designer hates Hearthstone. And if it's a card game and it's a networked card game, you already know who I'm talking about. If you know who it is, you know who you are. I believe at the time, what happened was at the time when we started, it was a card game based around Monster High School. And then, pretty early, when we got there, the lead programmer and leadership team had already, most of the tools set up. But they were kind of set up in a way that only he really ever understood what was going on with the programming for that game. Which became problematic later, for reasons. Because, as it turns out, if you have multiple programmers and only one really understands what's going on, you're not going to be able to get a lot of work done. Then, I want to say maybe halfway through that, we had a shift in the design of the game, which by the way, you should never allow your designer to change the design of the game, no matter how small, halfway through, or like even a couple weeks into it. That's just a bad idea, and I learned that the hard way. But I don't blame you. What else went wrong there? Oh, and then a quarter later, after a lot of us had moved on from the team, the dude in charge of that project, not naming names, basically scrapped a bunch of the content and like threw away art and stuff, and a lot of like a quarter's worth of work just to try to revamp it completely, which basically ended up with him more or less being blacklisted from our club. Also weird because he was also already graduated at that point, which maybe was a red flag. Oh yeah, it was a mess. But, you know, I don't regret working on it. It was an interesting time. Yeah, and I made some great friends out of it.
What are some games that inspire you as a developer?
Games that inspired me as a developer. I think Fallout New Vegas is a masterpiece, both in, you know, what it was able to do in its scope, which was just retooling a lot of programming and tools and assets from Fallout 3. So I think from that standpoint, it's impressive, like what you can do with just like reusing a lot of stuff to make a far superior game. Also, in terms of writing, I think it's just a masterpiece. I think I've replayed Fallout New Vegas more than I've played any other game. There's just a lot to go back to that game. Like, years later, I still don't think I've seen 100% of what that game has to offer. And knowing what I know about the development of that game and all the problems that came with it, that's still really impressive what they were able to accomplish. And if I could ever like even come close to making something as impressive as New Vegas, I would like be incredibly happy with myself. Obsidian is my favorite studio, so maybe that's some bias. Other games that really inspired me. It's a weird one, but the earliest game I ever remember playing as a kid was the port of the original Rayman game on PC. And I remember it being a really hard, but also having really tight controls for a platformer. And it kind of drove my interest in platforming games, like, going forwards. Which, I mean, platforming games are kind of generic in terms of, like, the kind of games you can make in VGDC, but I still think, like, there's really interesting things you can do with it. And for me, I always like to point at, like, the 2D Rayman games as a good example of, like, interesting things you can do with, like, a 2D platformer that aren't just, like, a Mario clone. I'm trying to think. Gone Home made me love walking simulators, just because, like, it's all just, like, you know, I love games where you know, there's great writing in the actual dialogue, but also you can figure out a lot of the story and a lot of what's going on just by interacting with the environment and looking around. I really love games like BioShock and Gone Home for that. And I know a lot of people like to give walking sims crap, but I enjoy them. I think they're pretty, and they're fun, and they're relaxing, and they don't make me stressed, which is something I need a lot.
Where would you like to live after college, or what are some of your major goals?
Dream job has and always will be Obsidian. I don't know what I want to do there, but I just want to be there. I want to be there, I want to be in it. I want to be at Obsidian because as far as I care, like, even their not great games have something really interesting going on. And it just feels like a studio that is, like, big enough to not be indie, but small enough to not have to sell out and do some things that I'm not fond of. And I don't like using that term, selling out. You know, sometimes you just have to do things in the game industry to survive, and that has to happen. But Obsidian has always been really interesting to me, and that they seem to really, like, stick with their integrity a lot of the time, and I like that. But realistically, if you have a game job and you're hiring, I will work for you. I just want to do games.
If you know it.
Slytherin. 100%, no doubt. I'm a sketchy dude, but also they're the best house because they're awesome.
What animal would you be if you were an animal?
Otter. I've asked this question many times. This is the question I ask people. What animal would you be? These are like some of the questions I ask people. The questions you always ask people are, what animal would you be? And tell me a cringeworthy but funny cringeworthy story from middle school.
Do you want to answer that one on camera right now?
Yeah, I do want to answer that question. Sure. There's a lot of those. I have a lot of weird stories from middle school. There was one time where in PE, for some odd reason in my middle school in PE, we got to do archery one year. I'm not quite sure why. I'm not sure why they thought it would be a good idea to give children, bows and arrows, and how they thought, yeah, this won't go wrong. Anyway, long story short, I may or may not have shot an arrow into a parking lot where it didn't hit a car. Oops. Allegedly, of course. There may have been something to do with fireworks at middle school, but no one can prove that. There was a lot of things that allegedly happened that maybe would get me in trouble. None of them were, super illegal or anything or dangerous, just funny and would probably get you in trouble with a principal. There was a lot. There was the arrow thing. There was that one guy who brought fireworks and was like, no one set this off, and then I set it off, because of course I did. Really funny and cringeworthy story. I don't know if this is even a funny story, it's just like, when I think about middle school, this always comes up. There was this one guy I knew in middle school, and most of the time, he was a pretty normal guy. But one day he just came into class and just flipped over an entire table, and then walked out, and then no one ever saw him again. And I don't know if that's funny. It's probably not funny. It's just something I always think about. What happened to that dude? Why did he flip over a table? Why did he never come back? Where is he now? I got sidetracked. What are we talking about?
He always gives some really good insight into what should do as a person.
Oh yeah, it's been a weird life. For sure.
On that note, what Pokemon would you be if you were a Pokemon?
Wooper. He has no arms, but he's adorable, and all he says is, whoop whoop! Which, sounds great. If I only have to say one phrase for the rest of my life, it would be that.
If you were stranded on an island, what 3 essential things would you want for you? And we can assume that the necessities are taken care of, so you can just give, more fun answers.
Okay. 3 essential things I'd want. Within, the realms of reality?
Up to you.
Okay, up to me.
Up to you.
So 3 essential things I'd want. I'd want to strand all of my friends with me. Because if I'm going to suffer, I refuse to do it alone. I'd like a water filtration system just so, I can take seawater or rainwater and, get fresh and drinkable water out of that. I think water is important. If I'm going to be trapped on an island with all of my friends and a sustainable amount of water, I'd like to be the one person with a battle axe, so if it comes down to it, if people start turning on each other, I can defend myself / take over as leader of the island.
Okay.
Because, every group of savages and scoundrels needs a leader.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
One superpower that I want. I feel like the easy answer is flight, because everyone wants to fly. I'm gonna go with just mind reading, because I feel like it'd be very, very practical in terms of, okay, I can probably college would have been a lot easier if I had mind reading, because I could have just gone for most of my tests pretty easily. I feel like you can get pretty far in industry and most business if you have the power to read people's minds. I feel like it's just from a practical standpoint, it's very useful, but
It's
also
the
dangerous.
Slytherin
But it's
time.
also, you know, it's like the monkey paw effect, where now you know what everyone's thinking about you. And so I'm not sure if I want that. I like living in denial somewhat. I'm gonna stick with mind reading. / mind control. Ooh, there.
Like Professor X.
Yes, just give me all of the telepathy. And mind control.
What is your favorite meme?
Professor X, but less evil. Just to amend that. Favorite meme. Which ones aren't super dated? Is dabbing a meme now?
Sure.
I like dabbing.
Cool.
Are the kids still doing it?
I have no idea.
My favorite meme is anyone where it's like, hello, fellow youths. Or, well, is this still a thing the kids... Or basically anything where it talks about the kids these days. Just because it's slowly becoming me. I'm slowly coming out of touch with the children. I don't know what they like. Do they still play Fortnite? Is that still a thing? Are all the children now playing the Apex Legends? I don't know.
Who's your favorite superhero?
Oh, I got this one. Booster Gold. He's my favorite DC one. So in order, it's Booster Gold. Both Blue Beetles. The two most recent ones. Nightcrawler, because he's fantastic and is the best in everything, and he's sometimes a pirate, but not always a pirate, and I love that. Who else is really great? There's a lot of awesome superheroes who I love that I'm really passionate about. Basically anything Jack Kirby related is amazing and you should read. Doom Patrol is amazing. Swamp Thing is amazing. I love Animal Man. There's a lot that I love in comics. I really enjoy comics.
So if someone watches this video but they don't know you and they see you in the game lab, should they like come up to you and start talking about superheroes to break the ice with you?
Yes, you should come up to me and start talking about superheroes. Unless you really like 90s edgy like comics, in which case I'm gonna like argue with you and be like, those aren't that great. Not in retrospect. There was problematic stuff there. Or, you know, talk to me about games. Or I also really love movies. Sci-fi is great. Sci-fi, horror. I really love crime drama. Just crime drama is weird because I just remember watching a lot of crime drama TV shows on Netflix and TV forever as a child. That was basically the background music of my high school life, was someone's been murdered. Who did the murder? It was that guy. Then next episode, repeat.
If you were a bender for a pink what would your element be?
I'm gonna go with the lava bending because it's a mixture of the earth and fire bending. People have told me that I look like I would be an earthbender because brown hair, I guess. But I feel like firebending is more with my personality of being a little spontaneous and out of control sometimes and doing whatever I want, which seems very fiery. So I would either go, you know, fire or the midway point of lava.
If you were a paladin of Voltron, which lion would be yours?
Ooh, that's a good question. I gotta go just with... I'm a really big fan of the yellow lion. It's cool. It gets a big laser on it. That's awesome. It's the most tanky of all the lions, so if it gets hit hard, it's the least one to get me killed. Also, just yellow is a good color. Also, in show, the best driver drives the yellow lion because he's the one with the least amount of emotional baggage or problematic character development.
Ex-Vice President Andrew wants to know what's your darkest secret.
Ah! You gotta keep that in the video, by the way.
I will.
That scream.
I will.
This comes from the fact that one time Andrew's cousin came over and I asked him, hey, what's Andrew's darkest secret? And then he told me about Christmas. I have a lot of dark secrets. I'm a very dark person with a mysterious past. It's my darkest secret. I am actually terrified of pelicans, like, cripplingly so. Like, there's this story where, like, I was a kid and my family decided to go visit Florida on vacation of all places for some reason. I guess Disney World or something. And they're like, we're gonna go visit this pelican reservation. And I'm like, cool, you guys do that. I'm gonna stay in the car. And then in the parking lot, this pelican walks up to the car and jumps on the hood and is just staring at me through like the windshield. And so I go into the fetal position under the front car seat, and I'm like 6 at this point, and I'm just like, make the bird with the weird neck go away. This has to do with the fact that pelicans are jerks, and if you get too close to them, they will attack you, because they're awful. They're awful, awful seabirds. Birds in general, not my favorite. Seabirds, the worst.
PSA from Mayan, stay away
Yeah.
from seabirds.
The more you know aquatic birds, bad. Don't do it. Stay away. Wait, we forgot to talk about Itai Goes to the Gym. That was never a game I worked on. It was a meme and you shouldn't play it, but it was fantastic.